the sun will expand to envelop Earth and destroy all life. We know this is an undisputed fact. Then if we don't take life to another planet, all life will be destroyed. So it's incumbent upon us to ensure that we do bring life to other planets and ensure the long-term survival of life as we know it on planet Earth.
And I mean, aside from that, there's so much that Starship unlocks by being able to do these things. Like, we'll be able to go to Mars, but there are other just transformational things by being able to take that many people, that much stuff to space for that much less money.
Yeah, I mean, I think like understanding our planet better, being able to move people around the planet, make it feel smaller and more accessible. You could go anywhere on the Earth, in less than 40 minutes, basically, in terms of flight time. So I really do see Starship as being this thing that can connect us, just like Starlink connects our information. This can connect us more physically.
Yeah. So there's really nothing faster than a rocket. Really, an orbital rocket is the fastest thing that we know of of the fastest means of transport. So, like, you could go from LA to Sydney in less than half an hour. You could go LA to Tokyo in less than half an hour. You could go from New York to Singapore in half an hour. Everything's probably half an hour, basically. Some things might be 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, yeah, sign me up for that, please. All right, cool.
Cross the Atlantic in 10 minutes, no problem.
Please. Yes, sign me up.
You're going 25 times the speed of sound, so that's 30 times faster than a commercial aircraft.
And it's a whole hell of a lot better view.
Yeah, it's a hell of a view.
Yeah. All right, cool. Anything else, guys? Anything else?
Well, we could say a lot more.
Yeah.
Maybe we should go check in on the rocket and get on console.
We're going to go back on console to hopefully the weather supports the launch tonight. Thanks for tuning in and thanks for your support.
All right. Obviously, that was really cool. There's probably not anybody else cooler on the planet to talk Starship with. Still very ready to sign up for that point-to-point travel, too. Also, though, it's really hard to relay just how much power is being generated by these engines on this rocket. We try to compare it to something like a little bit closer to home for people. We've used an airplane a lot of times. That's just something a little more tangible to folks.
Yeah, if you were to stack Starship up against one of the biggest airplanes out there today, the 747, just one Raptor engine is double the thrust of all 4 airplane engines. Super crazy to think about. And the Super Heavy on the pad right now, which has 33 Raptor engines, is putting out as much power as about 64 747s.
Yeah, it's, again, just a tremendous amount of power. World's largest flying object. It's crazy. And again, that was really cool to just go through that. I love to geek out as much as everybody else over all the nitty-gritty, but always important to remember there's a lot of people that just don't know that all of this is happening. So it's cool to remind them, cool for everybody else out there to help us spread that word. All right. So right now we are 17 minutes, 12 seconds, and counting until the 10th Starship Flight Test. While we do have a moment, though, let's check in over with Tyler Lionquist over in Hawthorne for the latest on Starlink. How's it going, Tyler?
Thanks, Dan and Amanda. I'm Tyler Lionquist, and I'm a Starlink business analyst here at SpaceX. Starlink is SpaceX's low Earth orbit, high-speed internet that's bringing connectivity both on Earth and in space. Now, for today's mission, Starship is outfitted with 4 Starlink terminals, allowing us to get live views of ship while in orbit and all the way down to splashdown in the Indian Ocean. Our Starlink satellites are built in Redmond, Washington, which is also where we monitor the health of the entire constellation. So let's take a quick look for more on Redmond.
What a lot of people might not realize when they think about the scale that we're operating is that actually 2/3 of the operational satellites in orbit are Starlink satellites. And then all of those Starlink satellites came from right here in Redmond. We've currently got a constellation of over 8,000 satellites that are flying around in orbit. So they're working together to fill out the whole surface of the Earth, make sure everywhere can have service. So we have these laser links that are connected between the satellites, so each satellite can pass data from one to the other. That is what allows us to have these hundreds of gigabit links between satellites, and that's what allows us to connect every corner of the Earth to high quality, high speed, low latency internet. When you think about that Starlink that you have at home, the technology that's in there and that's in your antenna is very similar to the antenna that's on the satellite. We use what are called phased array antennas, which is a fancy way of describing an antenna that's made up of many little antennas that work together in order to direct their energy to a specific spot on the ground without a motor.
Generally, satellite manufacturing is a very slow process. It takes people weeks or months to build a satellite. At SpaceX, we iterate very fast, and we have learned how to build satellites at the 70 sats a week rate. As we have focused a lot on production rate, we have not forgotten about our satellite reliability, which is critical to our mission.
If you look at the whole world and you ask, where is the satellite industry? It's right here in the USA, in Redmond, where the vast majority of satellites being built are being built right here. Starlink is a truly game-changing technology, and it's all supported by the global satellite constellation from this space here in Redmond. And we're really just getting started at the very beginning of what we want to do with Starlink.
Now, as we mentioned earlier in the show, one of today's objectives is for SHIP to deploy Starlink simulator satellites that represent the advanced V3 satellites Starship will be launching in the future. And as you can see here, once Starship reaches a nominal orbit, the payload door will slowly begin to open to prepare for deployment. The Starlink satellites will be dispatched relatively quickly, one at a time, like a Pez dispenser, as you can see on your screen. They'll be situated in one long stack, taking up as little space as possible, allowing for an efficient deployment sequence. Once a set of Starlinks are deployed, the next set advances and deploys until they are all drifting away from Starship to prepare for their on-orbit life. Each Starlink V3 launch on Starship is planned to add 60 terabits per second of capacity to the Starlink network. That's more than 20 times the capacity added with every V2 mini launch on Falcon 9. So we're talking about a massive increase in performance all around, which will ultimately enable Starlink to serve as the communications backbone of the missions to the Moon and to Mars. So for now, we're going to turn it back over to the team at Starbase.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Okay, let's turn our attention to today's flight profile, which will feel familiar because it is. We're looking to get our first re-entry with this iteration of SHIP, and we're again intentionally stressing Super Heavy during its return. The next generation booster is on the horizon, so the objective is to push and learn all we can from this current version.
All right, let's jump right in. As always, it's going to start with liftoff. Super Heavy ignites 33 engines lifting off from Starbase and ascending. It's going to power that ascent for about 2.5 minutes until we get to hot stage separation. Super Heavy shuts down all but 3 engines, deeply throttles the remaining ones, stage 2 lights its, and flies away. We have stage separation and directional flip. It's going to descend. We're going to do some landing burn experiments and then do a splashdown in the Gulf.
Meanwhile, SHIP continues on with its ascent burn, again reaching a planned suborbital trajectory. We'll attempt to deploy 8 Starlink simulator satellites and then head back for re-entry, where we'll be testing multiple experiments, including missing tiles, metallic tiles, and intentionally loading the vehicle's flaps. SHIP will also attempt a flip maneuver, and if all goes as planned today, we'll conclude the test with a soft water splashdown in the Indian Ocean. So that's what we have on deck for Flight 10, which is just about 11 minutes, 40 seconds from launching.
That's right. And so just a quick status check-in. So as you said, we're about 11 and a half minutes away. We have some good news. We got our latest range and weather status, and surprise, everything is looking green today.
Thank
so
goodness.
that's the biggest news that we were looking for. Again, weather is the main watch item for today. But we are green right now. We're not tracking any issues with the vehicle or ground systems, so we are looking pretty good for launch. We did all of our normal pre-flight checkouts with all the different vehicle and pad systems. At this very moment, we're almost done, or we're pretty far into our prop load on SHIP and a little bit more to go on the booster.
Yep, looking closely, it looks like we're nearly closed out on ship, like Dan said, about 70% of the way through on both methane and LOX on the booster side. We'll continue loading prop for a while. We'll close out at about T minus 30 minutes, 20 seconds on ship, and then 30 seconds later, we'll finish up loading prop on the booster.
Yeah, so bottom line, a little over 10 minutes to go. Range is green, weather is green, vehicles looking healthy. We're looking good to launch right at the top of our window at 6:30 p.m. Central Time.
Can't wait. All right, now let's quickly talk about Mars, since everything we do is part of our foundational mission to get to the Red Planet. Each Starship launch is to learn more and more about what's needed to make life multiplanetary and to improve ship to the point where it's taking millions of people to Mars.
Yeah, we've shared the plan previously in the last couple of months. We're looking to start sending the very first Starships to Mars next year. These missions, not with people. We're just looking minimally viable landers. So let's just prove that we can get there. And so we're just going to focus on learning as much as possible, but looking at all of those different phases, you know, prop load, prop transfer on orbit, sending stuff out to Mars, doing the transit, doing the entry, and just doing a landing.
And in our next window, around 2028 to 2029, we're going to attempt to land the initial infrastructure and start delivering more equipment as well, while evaluating available resources on the Red Planet. And we will also have Optimus on board for the ride, who is designed to do the initial heavy lifting.
Well, looks like we're doing some flap checkouts real quick on the ship as we are coming up on 9 minutes. Back to Mars, though, as those wrap up by about 2030, 2031, we'll continue to increase the payload per ship, build out more infrastructure out there on Mars's surface, start to mine some of those resources, set up some propellant generation plants, build up some fuel and some oxidizer to send Starships back from Mars. By the time we get all the way to 2033, we're looking to double the amount of payload we're sending with each ship as we get closer and closer to building a self-sustaining presence on the Red Planet.
Yeah, definitely lots of exciting missions ahead of us, and these are going to be crucial to setting up what we'll need for humans to eventually inhabit the planet, and we won't be doing this alone. The Italian Space Agency and SpaceX recently signed a first-of-its-kind agreement to carry Italian experiments on the first Starship missions to deliver customer payloads to Mars. So these payloads will include a plant growth experiment, a weather monitoring station, and also a radiation sensor to gather scientific data during Starship's approximately 6-month interplanetary coast phase from Earth to Mars, and also on the Martian surface.
It's a really exciting mission. Makes showing up for work really fun for us. We're going to need to launch a whole lot more, though. So while we're just under 8 minutes away from launch today, let's head back over to Tyler and Hawthorne, talk a little bit about how we're going to be increasing the number of Starship launches going forward. Tyler?
Thank you, Dan and Amanda. So to put it plainly, in order to launch more Starships, we need to build more launch pads. And that's exactly what we're doing at Space Launch Complex 37 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Now, Pad 37 has a story history, most recently with the Delta IV rocket and for the missions for the U.S. government. And prior to that, the pad supported critical development for the Apollo lunar program in the 1960s. And we are honored to have the opportunity to continue making spaceflight history at Pad 37 with Starship. But first, we need to optimize the pad. So earlier this year, we started dismantling some of the existing infrastructure to prep the site for Starship operations. This will include up to 76 launches a year, with up to 152 landings at that location for Super Heavy and for Starship. And to support this flight rate, we plan on building 2 launch pads. Each will have 1 tower that can support launch and landing, plus deflector systems, launch mounts, and water deluge systems. This will also include a propellant farm that will produce propellant on site and serve both launch pads. So there is a lot of work in progress, but Pad 37 is only one part of our plan for Starship operations in Florida. A few miles away from Pad 37 at Kennedy Space Center, our 380-foot-tall vertical integration facility called GigaBay is under construction. Once complete next year, GigaBay will be capable of housing multiple Starships simultaneously for rapid assembly and integration. And meanwhile, at Launch Complex 39A, we're building Starship's infrastructure to support up to 44 launches and up to 88 landings a year, independent of operations at Pad 37. So with 2 launch complexes in Florida, we'll have the ability to fly up to 120 Starships annually, not including our flights from Starbase. So Action is well underway in Florida. How's it looking in Texas?
Thanks, Tyler. Things are continuing to look good for launch here in Texas, so getting pretty close here with just under 6 minutes left. You mentioned Gigabay. We're currently laying the foundation for Gigabay here at Starbase as well, and we expect it to be up and running sometime next year. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of Starships on the way, and we're going to need more hands on deck. So come help us build the gateway to Mars. Visit spacex.com/careers to see all of our openings.
Yeah, I've been here for a couple of years now. Nowhere more magical, more inspirational on the planet. If you're a space nerd, you can come be like Amanda and build these things for real. It's pretty insane. It's super exciting. And yeah, come check us out. All right.
Absolutely. It's surreal to be here for sure. Okay, so we are looking like we're about 5 minutes away from launch and heading into terminal count. Range and weather are continuing to look good, and prop load continues on both stages of Starship. We'll close out here in just a minute or so.
Yeah, we're just about done. It looks like, let me grab my numbers real quick. We're not tracking any issues. We are just creeping up to 90% full on the LOX on the booster, a little over 93% on ship. Fuel on the booster, and then ship we're just about to close out, so only a couple of minutes to go there. Once we're done, you've got just shy of 11 million pounds of liquid propellant on board those two different stages. We'll see a couple of final things happen. Well, you can't really see it. It's all going to be happening in our ground systems as we'll do pushbacks, clear all of the propellant out of those lines that are flowing up through the tower and into the vehicles, and get ready for launch. We just did our final guidance, navigation, and control system checkouts. Our flight safety system is being armed right now, and we're doing our final wiggle checks shortly with the engines on the thrust vector control. It's how we're steering the rocket. If we need to hold, which we are not currently tracking a reason to hold, that would come at T-minus 40 seconds. You saw us do that yesterday. We can hang out there for about 8 minutes or so right now. That's the point. It's built into the countdown. If we need to wait for clouds that just won't go the heck away or any other issues, we can hang out at T-minus 40 for a bit. But at the moment, we're not planning to do that.
Now, once we pass that T-minus 40-second mark, a number of events are going to occur in rapid succession. The ground spin and ignition systems come up to flight pressure. Ship will switch over to internal power, and after that, the QD arm lockout is removed in preparation for retraction, which occurs shortly after T0. And once we pass that T-minus 40 seconds, we do still have the ability to then recycle the count under certain conditions back to T-minus 40 seconds and hold there to assess what happened, and if we can proceed again back down to liftoff.
That's right. We do have at least one point of no return, though. If the water-cooled flame deflector underneath the launch mount fires off, that happens a little bit after T-minus 10 seconds. That doesn't turn off once it starts going, so we would have to stand down for the day if we do hit a hold or an abort at that point, so we can refill water tanks. At this point, we're not sure if we'd be able to attempt tomorrow because we have fully loaded the vehicle. We have to do a lot of fancy scheduling to get propellant in here as fast as possible, but again, we've got a pretty heroic and amazing team that works all of those logistics, got us into our attempt today after we did a unplanned wet dress yesterday during our attempt. So really exciting to see. But we're coming up on 2 minutes. We've got a green range. We are green for weather. Green has always been my favorite color, only more so now. And we are not tracking any issues with the vehicle today. So we are looking good. 2 minutes to go.
Yeah, again, not planning on holding at T-minus 40 seconds right now, but in case we do pass that and any issues come up, we can recycle the count. We're pretty lucky that we have this ability. Falcon doesn't have that built in, but being a developmental program, this affords us a lot more flexibility, so super useful to be able to have that. But again, not currently tracking any issues, so hopefully we'll be good to launch today.
All right, coming up on 90 seconds, we've got a pretty good crowd gathering with us right outside Star Factory here at Starbase. Looks like we're getting a quick TVC, that wiggle check.
This is my favorite view of the rocket.
Right under the launch mount. All right, so we've got crowds gathered out at Hawthorne, crowds gathered here at Starbase.
Super fun to see people getting to watch out on the front lawn now.
1 minute to go to launch. All right, so again, our hold point comes up at T-minus 40, not tracking any reason to stop there, so we should see us go right through that. All right, we are through T-minus 40. We are counting down. We're going to let our flight director, Maciek Batura, take us the rest of the way. 30 seconds, the 10th liftoff of Starship.
T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.
Vehicles pitching downrange.
Booster chamber pressure nominal.
All right, we're a little over 40 seconds into flight. 33 out of
Booster and
33
ship,
Raptor
avionics,
engines.
power and telemetry nominal.
Getting good call outs, healthy systems on the booster as it starts to pitch over the Gulf. All right, we're a little over 1 minute into flight, about to pass through max Q.
Max Q.
All right, so we are through the period of maximum dynamic pressure, max stress on the vehicle as it continues to fly.
Our next major event is going to be hot staging, which is happening in just over 90 seconds from now. To get ready, the booster will shut down all but 3 of its Raptor engines. The clamps holding the 2 stages together will release, and the Starship second stage ignites its engines. The ship then separates from the Super Heavy booster and heads to space. At the same time, the 3 engines still firing on Super Heavy will flip the booster around. 10 more engines will ignite for the boost back burn, putting the first stage on the path for splashdown in the Gulf. As we mentioned earlier, the hot stage will be jettisoned for this flight, and that should occur just after the boost back burn. So we're about to shut down the first stage and perform hot staging. So let's just watch and listen.
All right, seeing the engine start to throttle down.
MECO. Ship ignition. Boost back burn startup.
Stage separation.
Stage separation confirmed. We've got 6 engines running on ship. Booster is doing its boost back burn, continuing now towards its splashdown site in the Gulf.
Ship
We are
Raptor
seeing
chamber
all 6
pressure is
Raptors
nominal.
lit up on ship. You heard them report ship chamber pressures nominal, so that chamber pressure, just that expected thrust level in those Raptor engines on the ship. 3 vacuum optimized,
Ship
3 sea
avionics,
level,
power and
all
telemetry
looking
nominal.
good. There's a view into the business end from the ship.
Boost back burn shutdown.
All right, so at this point, we finished our boost back burn, so that was shut down. So that's the first of the 2 burns after a launch that the booster is going to do today. So now it's headed towards the Gulf. It's not going to be quite as an aggressive of a flight down. We relax that angle of attack a little bit, but we are then going to be looking for it to do its engine tests for the landing burn, and those are going to be a little unique this time.
Yeah, typically we start with all 13 inner engines lit for that landing burn and bring that down to just the center 3. But one of our test objectives for today is to simulate what an engine out situation would look like. So we're going to be intentionally turning off one of those center 3 and instead lighting one of the engines from the middle 10 ring.
Yeah, we did see one of those engines in the middle ring shut down during the initial ascent. Oh, looks like we have hot stage jettison. You can see it floating away there to the left of the booster. Yeah, we did see one of those middle engines shut down during the ascent. Again, we are resilient to engine out on Super Heavy. That's why we're able to get through our ascent. Starship flying on the expected path. There's still a chance that engine could be back in the mix for the very start of the landing burn, so we'll see if we light up all 13. But we've even done a landing burn at the tower with an engine out, so very resilient. We'll see how it does on its way down to the Gulf, though. All right, so we got a couple of minutes. That landing burn start should be just about 40 seconds away. That's always rad. You can see the boost plume itself in the background as it was coming in. All right, about 20 seconds to landing burn.
Ship Raptor chamber pressure is nominal.
All right, here we go.
Landing burn startup.
Looks like we got 12 of those 13.
Down to 3, including one of the middle ring. Down to 2. Nice little hover. And landing burn shutdown. And into the Gulf, here we come. And the booster has splashed down.
Incredible flight for booster today.
Meanwhile, back in space, about 7 minutes into today's flight, ship continuing its ascent burn. This goes until just about 9 minutes into our flight. That ship engine cutoff is slated for 8 minutes and 57 seconds. We are going to see those 3 RVAC, the Raptor vacuum engines. Those are the bigger circles in that little indicator on the bottom right of your screen. Those will shut down first, and we continue burning for a couple seconds longer on those inner 3 before we hit SECO, or second engine cutoff.
Yeah, these views are looking great. Once again, thanks to Starlink for getting us these views. It's just incredible. And we just heard the sound from booster.
It's like we just got a late boom from the booster.
Yeah, we have ship engine cutoff coming up here just shortly. And as we mentioned, today's flight test is not an orbital flight, but rather one that demonstrates Starship's orbital capability.
Starship and terminal guidance.
All right, entering the final phase of this burn. Under 30 seconds to go. All right, shut down the vacuum engines.
Ship engine cutoff.
We shut down those center 3. Successful ship engine cutoff.
Seco, baby. There we go. That's what we want.
Nominal orbit insertion.
All right, we just heard the call out for nominal orbital insertion.
All right, so ship is in space. There we go. We're seeing the flaps starting to move into a stowed position. That's why it looks like your camera's moving.
Yeah, exciting to see Starship safely in space, and super pumped to see all the team's hard work in action here today. And of course, as guaranteed, it's been an exciting day so far. We successfully lifted off right on time at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. Thankfully, our weather was looking good today. And booster, we had our soft splashdown in the Gulf, so ship continues on.
Yeah, ship able to complete its ascent burn all the way in. You can see some of the shadows start to creep as it's going to be eventually flying into an orbital nighttime, so we'll see some daylight start to go away. But ship is in orbit, completed its burn, and I mean, that's just the beginning. Now we've got a whole bunch more to go. So we've got some exciting demonstrations planned while we're on orbit. That right there, we just saved the FTS, the flight termination system. That's that automatic flight safety system we have on the vehicle. So that is now turned off while ship starts its coast period. We are coming up, our next milestone is going to be the deployment of those Starlink simulators. We've got some payload inside of Starship that we're hoping to deploy into space for the very first time. That deploy is supposed to start at about 18 minutes and 27 seconds into the flight, so just about 7 minutes from now. That deploy will take place over a couple of minutes. It'll go about 1 satellite a minute, so we'll be spread out over that. It might get a little dark, but we've got a couple of views that we can show you to see that deploy in action. After that, we're also looking to do a relight of a single Raptor engine while we are in space. We've done this once before. This is not necessary to deorbit, as we are in a suborbital trajectory, but this is essentially a chance to test out what we need to be able to do a deorbit burn. So we'll be doing that a little bit later in the flight, about 37 minutes or so into the flight, and then we get into reentry. We're looking to get that light show and, more importantly, get that really critical data about the ship's heat shield.
Yeah, exactly. At about T plus 45 minutes, we'll be heading for reentry. Again, running those experiments with the tiles. We're going to be doing missing tiles, metallic tiles, and also intentionally loading those vehicles' flaps. Hopefully, we'll also see a splashdown in the Indian Ocean today.
Yeah, we were able to get to a reentry last time, but we didn't have full attitude control, so we weren't able to go in, heat shield first the way we're designed to. So we ended up losing contact with the ship before we could make it all the way through. So you still get data, but you're not really getting the data that we want to make sure we're kind of stress testing the vehicle. As Amanda just said, we removed a bunch of tiles, and we do this in some intentionally scary places on the vehicle because we're really looking, are there spots that were vulnerable to this? Before we ever start moving towards, putting ship into a full orbital mission to then do reentries a little bit later on. So really, really critical to get that data, really looking forward to a controlled reentry.
Yeah, for sure. As we always say, our main payload is data, but today we also have some actual payload on board, and those simulators that Starship will be deploying, we'll see coming up here in just a few minutes. These are dummy satellites that are about the same size as our V3 Starlinks. We have 8 in the Starship PEZ dispenser and expect to deploy at a rate of about 1 per minute, as Dan mentioned earlier. Starlink is critical in all of our flights on Starship to get our main payload data, as we always say. And in fact, it's Starlink that's currently providing these views you see as Starship cruises a couple hundred kilometers above our home planet and provides real-time telemetry through every phase of flight.
Yeah, we took a peek inside of the Starship payload bay there for a second. So there's 8 of them there. They kind of look just big steel plates, essentially. They're roughly the same size as those V3 satellites. When we do get that view inside of the payload bay, the payload door will kind of be on your right, and we'll start to see them go out like a Pez dispenser. Yeah, here's a look inside. So those right down there in the center, they're kind of 2 stacks of 4 on either side, and then the payload door is just to their right. And so we'll look to see that open, and then those satellites start to go. We vent the nose cone, so we essentially bring it down to vacuum before we open the door. That was one of the things we ran into on the last flight, as when we had that fuel diffuser fail, the pressure in the nose cone became basically too high for the actuator of the door to open. So that's why we weren't able to get the door open that time. We have not seen anything like that on this flight. Everything's looking good with our fuel tank and our fuel press system. So we are hopefully just a couple of minutes away from seeing that payload door open and getting to our first ever payload. It's not the first payload we've ever carried, but it's the first one we're going to try and shoot off into space. All right, so I think we're supposed to open the payload door in just about a minute and change. And you're seeing a little bit of residual gas. And we opened the door once. I want to say it was back on Flight 3 when we were able to make it up into space. And you'll kind of see a lot of that gas rushing out into the vacuum of space. It's the residual that's left over after we've already vented it down. So kind of a cool light show. And then we'll get ready to deploy those payloads out. And as we mentioned, so we have crossed over now at this point into an orbital nighttime. So views from the outside will get pretty dark, but we'll see what we can see. We do this by design. We've been launching these later in the day here in Texas to try and get daytime views when we splash down. So it's daytime over in the Indian Ocean, where we are currently headed.
Just a few seconds until we expect those payload doors to open.
All right, one more time. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. So we are currently in payload deploy prep. And the door is open. All right, so the payload door is open. We should see the first satellite start to deploy at about T plus 18 minutes and 27 seconds. So should be only about 30 seconds. So one step closer. Hal listened this time. He cooperated. He opened the payload door for us. There's a view kind of behind the Pez here looking out into the vacuum of space.
About 15 seconds until payload deploy.
Ship has transitioned to payload deploy. There we go. Pew pew. Been waiting way too long to do that. There we go.
There goes another one. Super exciting moment, as you can hear the energy in both Hawthorne and Starbase. Everyone's super excited for finally getting to deploy some of those simulated satellites.
Pez system moving down. Next row. There we go. As we said, we're going to do about one every minute or so. And this is just kind of a dress rehearsal for when we're going to be deploying the V3 satellites. And these are just a massive, massive increase to Starlink's capability. Each one of them has it's 60 terabits per second of capacity that's going to get added to the network per launch. That's 20 times more than what we're adding with every single Falcon 9 launch today, which, you know, step increase in capability. There goes another one. All right, so as we said, we've got 8 total that we're going to go through today. It's about a minute for each one, but looking good on payload deploy. All right, so we're about halfway through. When we actually start launching the V3 Starlinks on Starship, we're going to be flying about 60 each time. So it'll be about an hour to get through a full stack. But again, it's just going to be a massive increase in the amount of bandwidth. It's going to enable, you know, gigabit upload download for people with Starlink, you know, anywhere on the planet. And for us, Starlink is just a tremendous part of just the Starship Flight Test program.
Yeah, absolutely. Always getting us that data. And yeah, the amazing views we have on the vehicle today.
Yeah, views brought to you by Starlink of us deploying Starlink simulators before we deploy actual Starlinks. How deep does it go? All right, another one firing out. Pez looking smooth today. All right, looks like we've got one left.
Almost there.
Yeah, there you go. One remaining, so 7 of the 8 have been deployed. One more to go. And then we will have completed our first ever payload deploy operation. Just a reminder, we're on a suborbital trajectory. These satellites on that exact same suborbital trajectory, they're going to burn up entirely and are on that same trajectory towards the Indian Ocean. So the last one, you to coast towards Earth, around Earth, towards the Indian Ocean. Sorry, I'm really excited today. We are in space, people. Still a lot of major events to come, though. We are looking to relight one of those Raptor engines at about 37 minutes, 33 seconds into the flight, followed by atmospheric entry, hell of a light show, and splashdown. So we're going to go on a quick break, take a quick coast, sit back, enjoy the views. A little bit dark now, but they'll get better soon. A couple of space jams. We'll be back in just a few minutes for that Raptor relight and then re-entry. See you soon.